right.
Hey, I'm Ron from Ron's World Guitars, and this is the Rockstar Paint class.
Hey guys, this is Ron from Rockstar Paint Class, and I want to welcome you today. We're going to be painting Ash Costello. You would have already purchased your the kit that would have been sent to your house, and today I'm going to take you through step by step what it takes to create that portrait. Okay, you'll notice in the original portrait there's a lot of different details in there, and I'm going to walk you through a lot of that stuff. But after the class is over, I encourage you to continue on with the painting, get a little more blending if that's how you want to take it to actually achieve all these effects. Everything that we use to create that painting is in that kit that you have, all right? So there's no secrets, and I'm going to take you through the techniques, but all the materials, all the supplies are in there. If you have any questions, all right, please drop us a line, comment to us on Facebook at Rockstar Paint Class or on Instagram at Rockstar Paint Class as well. And I hope you have a good time. So today we're going to get started. What I'm going to do is I'll take you through the techniques, how I go about doing this. Everything you need to complete this portrait is in the kit, with the exception of a cup of water, clean water, and some paper towels. Okay, reason being is I don't clean my brushes a lot, but a lot of times I'll wipe them off, and sometimes I just don't want as much paint on the brush, so I use the paper towel to actually take some of that paint off. And I'll take you through that, and I'll tell you when I'm doing it, so you know exactly how much paint, how little paint we need. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our lightest colors and move on to our darker colors. Okay, so one of the lighter colors we have, it's almost like a flesh pink. All right, so why don't we get that out, and what I'll do is I'm going to put a little bit of that on the brush. And I don't use a lot of paint to start, all right? I kind of want to almost sketch with that paint on that canvas because I want it to dry pretty quickly for me so I can go ahead and continue on with my next color without smearing it. All right, so you can see very, very little paint. And what I'm also not really paying too much attention to is going on top of the black. All right, I want to cover that canvas, but I don't care if I get a little bit of paint on top of that because I have black paint, and what we'll do at the end is we'll go in and we'll clean all of that up. So again, don't worry about getting it completely within the lines. That's not an issue for us. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to paint her entire forehead with this light pink color. All right, so just get that paint on there. Nice and smooth, smooth it out. You don't want any bumps. It takes longer to dry that way. Take it right down to her eyebrows. And for now, we'll stop right there. Okay? So finish painting that in. And in the kit that you guys have, there's 5 brushes. I'm using the heaviest brush, the fattest brush. All right, because I want to get as much area covered as possible in a little amount of time. If you feel more comfortable using the smaller brushes, by all means. It's going to take you a little longer to actually get that paint on the canvas. Again, which is fine because you can always stop and pause this video or go back and speed it up as you see fit. Okay, so we've got that entire head, her forehead, painted in the pink. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring that down a little bit. So at the corner of her eyebrows, all right, I'll make 2 little lines like this. All right, so we're going to start to define the bridge of her nose. All right, and then let's take this and make an arc. All right, and I'll paint that in like that.
By the way, if you need a closer view of the painting, you can always zoom in by placing your 2 fingers on the screen and spreading them apart.
So when we're painting a portrait, one of the simplest things you're going to want to remember, all right, where the structure of the face are just highlights and shadows. Everything else we can always add and we can always tweak around, so to speak. But if you mess up the highlights and the shadows, it's not going to look right. All right, she has a very distinct feature as far as her cheekbones, her eyes, that stuff needs to be in place. Everything else we can fudge. So keep in mind, we're going to keep a highlight here, all right, and we'll bring that in later as we go with colors. All right, but you'll notice down the center of her nose, the bridge of her nose all the way down to the tip of her nose is one of the lightest spots on her face. We're going to want to leave that white, all right, as well as this cheek above her eye, underneath her eye, that cheekbone there, that's a highlight. And you'll notice she's got nice highlights right here above her lip in that section there. So try to leave those as light as possible. We do have white paint in our kit as well. So if we need to, we can go back and we can hit those white, but I'd really prefer to leave the white of the canvas if I can. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, what we're going to do now is we're going to take that and we're going to bring that line down. All right, so I'm going to start to define the bridge of her nose, and I want to create those shadows. Okay, so from where we made those points, come straight down. All right, and again, you'll start to see that white highlight. Right? That's what you're going to want to show right now. You're going to want to keep that section white. As we get towards the bottom here, let's make that little curve. Okay? Keeping the white in the middle, we've made the little curve at the bottom of her nose. All right, and then what I'll do is I'll paint in those side nostrils. So I'm just going to complete that little area there. All right, so we've given the structure to her nose and the side of the nostrils. All right, and again, not a lot of paint on the brush. All right, what I want to do now is I'm going to start to define the outside of her cheek. So let's take that pink and come all the way down her cheek, down around her jaw. All right, for now we'll stop it at the chin. Okay, so we're creating a little bit of texture, a little bit of shape, all right, and some contour on her face. We'll do the same thing down this side. All right, outline the entire side of her face. All right, I'll start from this nostril rather, down to her chin. Okay, I want to create that little line there. All right, again, Ash has got this, she's got a very, very soft, light look to this face, especially on the canvas, the painting that I did here. So we don't want to make these lines really heavy. That's why we're doing them in a light color. Now, if this was a man or a heavier lit subject, those lines might be in a stronger color. All right, but for now, we're going to keep them fairly light because we don't want to draw too much attention to them. All right, so there's those there. All right, what I'll do too is I'll come under that eye and I'll paint that in as well. All right, let's do a little bit on this side. All right, so now I've given the structure of her face. So what I'll do now is while that's there, so we see how that worked, I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to paint this in that flesh color. All right, so take your time to make it nice and smooth. All right, make sure you're covering that canvas. All right, so it's not streaky. And this paint should go on fairly nice. All right, for the time being, we'll just bring that straight down and we'll stop it there. All right, smooth it out nice. So that's got a nice smooth feel. Okay, the same thing. We just covered this entire side of her face. Okay. All right, what I'll do is on this side, I'll do the same thing. I'm going to bring it straight down here. And let's start by coloring this in the bottom. All right, I'm going to bring that up to about here, and then I'll show you a little trick we're going to use throughout this entire lesson. All right, so that's in there. So now, I didn't put any more paint on the brush, okay? The brush is fairly dry, so what I'm doing is I'm just going to dab that pink into this paper towel, and then the brush, you're using your heavy brush. So what I want to do now is take the side of that brush and literally smear that paint into the canvas. All right, get a little arc to it, all right? And you see you've got that little bit of that feathered look. All right, that's we'll call that the lazy man's blend, so to speak. All right, so I'm not blending any white into this. I'm just using a little bit of paint. Now, if there's too much paint on the brush, you're not going to get that effect. So wipe more paint off. All right, and just keep smearing that brush. Grind it right into that canvas. All right, and that'll give us that little bit of that halo look, so to speak, on her cheek. All right, and then if you add a little bit more paint down here, you can just fill in the rest. All right, stay away from that edge you just blended because we don't want to heavy that up. All right, so we've got that little bit of highlight on her cheek there. All right, let's go back now down bottom, and we'll color the rest of this in. So the reason we did that is just so you can get an idea of the way the face structure is. All right, and as we add different colors, you're going to go back to those areas of the face that we did prior, and you'll see how we add different colors, and that'll actually build the structure of her face a little more. All right, I'm going to go under here, and again, just very lightly, just to indicate some color under there, under her nose. All right, so you can still kind of see a little bit those lines that we left there. And if you can't, that's fine, because we can go back and we can add to it in a bit. But that at least gave me that structure of her face. I left the highlight for her nose, all right, and I made that little highlight under her eye, all right, here and here. This will go back with a little bit of white, and we'll add that to it. But so that's the way I want her face to look for now. We'll add more color in a second, all right? So we want to let that dry for a minute before we go putting any more color on the face. So while the face is drying, what we'll do is we'll come into this hand, all right? And I'm going to paint this finger here. I'll paint that entire finger pink. So bring that all the way down. All right, we'll bring that pink right above that knuckle. And then down the side of the hand. Follow the black line. All right, and you can see how many times I keep dipping that brush in the paint because I don't want a lot of paint on the brush at one time. All right, it'll flood the canvas and it'll create a problem for me later. So just keep it as dry as you can. All right, let's color in this finger here. All right, a little more paint, and then I'll leave the top of this finger white. I'll come down around the bottom here. All right, right on top of that little black line. And then what we'll do is we'll bring that all the way down here. All right, you got a little pink on top by where that ring is, by her knuckle. Okay, so you got something like that, all right? Leaving that white in the center for now. Okay, what I'll do now is I'm going to come underneath. I'll create this area on the top of her chest, under her chin. All right, let's start right about here in the middle, okay, with our pink. And what I'll do is I'll take that and I'll just push that pink into the canvas. I want to make this little, I don't know, this little upside down U shape on her chest here. All right, so something that looks something like that. And then what I'll do is I'll color in the center of this with the pink. All right, but I left that little random shape around the outside. And we'll come right down to the t-shirt line. And again, very light with the paint, all right, just enough to cover. I like to say it's always easier to add more paint. It's incredibly difficult to take it off. So you're going to want to leave that as light as you can, just enough to cover the canvas. All right, so again, we made that little shape over here in pink. All right, let's move on and we'll just block this section in here. This is her arm. So I'll create that in pink. All right, we'll do the same with this arm over here. Okay. All right, so now if yours is like mine, you'll notice where it's a little streaky in some sections. So a little bit more pink, all right, and just go over and smooth that out, all right? You don't want to have any streaky paint marks on our face when we go to layer it. That'll look funny. So make sure that paint is nice and smooth on there. All right, get it as smooth as you can, because once we add another layer of color, it'll be really hard to go back and try to do that again. So get as many of those streaks out as you possibly can. Okay? That should do it for the time being for our pink. All right, so like I said earlier, I don't clean the brushes a lot, all right, especially if the colors are, we'll call it friendly. So the next color we're going to use is going to be that little, that yellowish tint color. So get that out. It's almost like a light cream. All right, and what I've done is I've actually just basically taken the pink and wiped it off, all right, on the brush. There might be some on there, but I usually rub it on my hand. If nothing comes off, I'm good to go. All right, and there's that light yellow color. So I put a little bit on your palette. It makes life easy to blend it around. All right, so what I'm going to do with this color is I'm going to come back up here and, you know, a little dab, make sure the pink is dry. All right, and I'm going to add that color over top. So I'm not going to cover all of the pink. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave some of it. So I want to leave this area up here. I want to leave that pink. All right, so I'll go around that section. All right, and just literally take the brush and blend it right into the canvas. All right, and this color will actually smooth that pink out a lot for you as well. All right, it gives her a nice little warmer tone to her face. The pink can be a little cold, but you see I left that little highlight area there. All right, so it might be a little difficult to see it right now, but just let that dry and leave that little arc there. All right, what I'll do over here as well is I'll bring that down into that bridge part of her nose. Over top the pink. I'm not making that any fatter. Just go over top the pink. Make sure you've got it all the way up so it touches the eyebrows. All right, so there's no white. You want to actually bring that paint right up to that eyebrow. You don't want to see any white in there. All right, and we'll bring this yellow over top of this side as well. So we'll cover this entire cheek. All right, and for the time being, let's leave that little line right there. All right, where the area above her top lip, we'll leave that. All right, so we know where it is and we can come back and we can fill it in later. All right, put this color on very smooth. Okay, it actually smooths her face out. It almost looks a little like a foundation that a woman would put on her face. So use it as such. Make it nice and smooth. All right, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this down under her lip or her chin. But what I want to do is I want to stop it. So I'll go right about here, and then I'm going to make a little curve. All right, so what I've done is I've identified that ball part of her chin. All right, and that'll stay yellow. It's going to stop right there, though. All right, so find that spot almost 3/4 of the way across her lip, and then make a little bit of a curve. All right, and that's where you'll stop that yellow. All right, I'm going to do the same thing down bottom here. So I'm going to come around the edge of that pink with this yellow. All right, not coming into the middle. I want to leave the middle pink. So I'm using my yellow as sort of a perimeter color. All right, and it's going to soften up that edge for me. All right, and the nice thing about these colors too, we can always go back and layer more and more. So right now, if you don't like the way it looks, let it dry, and we can always go back and hit it again. So everybody's is going to be slightly different, and that's the cool part about this. It'll all come out looking like Ash Costello, but everybody's will be slightly different. As long as you pay attention, like I said, to the lights and the darks. All the other colors will be nice and we can blend and we can have fun with them. As long as you keep the highlights and the shadows correct, it'll look like Ash Costello. All right, let's go over again on the hand. And again, we're adding this yellow as an accent to the pink. So don't go too crazy with it. Leave the pink, but I want to put a little bit of this yellow on there. It'll smooth it out. All right, I still left the highlights. Okay, you're going to want to leave those highlights there. All right, again, let's make sure it's nice and smooth. Okay, all right. And let this dry for a second, all right? Let those two colors set up, and then we'll go back and we'll throw some orange on top of that. All right, so after that paint has set up, what I'll do now is, again, I'm not gonna clean the brush off. We'll just wipe it off. All right, just get some of that excess paint off there. All right, I've gone to orange. All right, so put some of that orange, squirt it on the palette. All right, and we'll put a little bit of orange on that brush. All right, and again, we're going to continue to layer these colors. Okay, so now we're going to start to get a little more pronounced with the color. So again, I don't have a lot of paint on that brush, and I'm using the side of that brush to get that little blend technique, right, that we talked about earlier. All right, I want to keep this curve on her forehead. All right, so a little bit of paint, and I'll just use the side of the brush, and I'm just going to smear this around. All right, again, if you have too much paint on this brush, it's not going to work. So if that line starts looking hard, what you're going to want to do is take that paintbrush and dab it in that paper towel and get some of that paint off that brush. All right, and you can actually hear me digging this brush into the board. All right, take it all the way around. All right, so you're getting that nice little blend of a color there. All right, when the brush is too dry, I'll add a little more orange to it and continue. All right, so I've got this nice little circle on the top of her head. All right, that's exactly what you're going to want. You see how it's got that nice little fuzz to it? Keep that brush dry, and that'll achieve that for you. And then what I'll do is I'll take the rest of this now and I'll color it in, staying away from that edge that I feathered. All right, I don't care if it's heavy on those sides because that's going to be darker anyway. All right, and that orange on top of that yellow on top of that flesh, that'll blend nicely for you. So just use those colors to that advantage. All right, they're easily blendable, so use it like that. All right, what I'll do now is I'm going to come down, I'll make this little section between her eyes here. I'll do the same thing with that. I'll make that orange and stop it right at that white bridge of her nose where we left it. Okay. All right, so now what I'll do is I'm going to come down, follow that line we originally made all the way down. So let's start to create that shadow on her nose. And again, you don't want this really, really heavy. All right, it'll look funny if she's got a really hard shadow on her nose. So try to keep that as easy as possible there. All right, and we'll bring that around. Underneath the tip of her nose, we're going to want to make a shadow. So we'll do that in orange. Okay, underneath the bottom of the nose, on the bottom of the nostril, use the orange to start to build that shadow. All right, and this needs to be a little bit fatter towards this side. So let's do that now. And I want to keep that side nostril a little lighter. All right, you notice I'm drying that off. All right, and that'll allow me to kind of push that orange into the other colors and feather it a bit. All right, I left that little bit of pink on the top of that nostril. All right, let's leave that there. All right, so you've got something like that on the side of that one side of her face. We're not going to do that on the other side. All right, I'm going to take the orange. Let's come up in here. What I'll start doing is I'll come underneath this eye. Nice and tight there, but heavier on that side. Let's get a little bit of shadow underneath that eye. Same thing, the brush is fairly dry. All right, and I'm going to build this cheek here. So let's start with a little bit heavier on the outside, and let's feather that in. So I'm taking this right down up to where that nostril is. You're going to want to make that little circle on her face. All right, so you've got a circle there, we got a circle there. Noticing a pattern? And I want to feather this a little bit more. Side of the brush. See, I'm actually pushing the brush. The bristles are separating. All right, I'm going to push that into that to create that nice soft spot on her cheek. All right, and then I can go heavier down here. Right, remember where we left that line? That's why we left it. So we're going to take that up to there. So that upper part of her upper lip, we left that pink to show us where that line was. So let's leave that line. All right, nice little dabs on the canvas will actually fill in any kind of inconsistency we have. So you don't have to put a ton of paint on there to cover that up. Just keep using the brush in a light little pattern here. All right, and we'll get that paint on there kind of nice and smooth. All right, I'll bring that down her chin, and I'll use that orange to create a nice little shadow underneath her chin. Okay, right on top of that black line, just a hint of it. All right, that'll show a little bit of roundness there. And then what I'll do is I'll just make myself a little bit of a line underneath her lip. All right, let's color that in. All right, I'm going to dry it off a bit. And now what I want to do is I'll come over here and I'll smear it. All right, I want to keep that little curve, and I want to keep the center of her chin that yellow color. All right, I don't want the orange to cover it. So I've done the same thing I've done throughout. I've kind of used that dry brush to mash those two colors together. And then I'll color this section in here. All right, so make sure you've got underneath the lip, all right, the little shadow there. You've made the curve for the ball of her chin, all right, you've got that little bit of a shadow. All right, we've come down from that nostril, left a nice little arc here, and it's come right to the corner of her lip, right over here. Okay, so you want to keep that shadow right to her lip. We want to keep it light above her top lip. All right, that area we want to keep there. That's going to create that nice little highlight she has on her top lip. All right, while we're over here, let's make a little bit of orange underneath this side. So I've just brought that shadow over, okay? We'll come onto the other side of the face, up against the hair. I'm just going to give a slight hint of orange. So I've taken the brush and I've put a little bit of orange on it. All right, and I'm going to ride that right down the side of her face there. Dry it off like we've been doing, and then I'll just take it and I'll just soften it up a bit, blend it into that flesh color. All right, so you've created a little bit of shadow on either side of her face by doing that. All right, we'll go down on this side. So same way we did the other two colors, we're going to build this little halo effect, okay? We're going to take this darker color now and ride that around the perimeter. All right, take it all the way around. So a nice way to do is make your line, all right, dry some of your paint off, and then go back with the side of the brush and just kind of smear it together. Okay. Let's fill in a little more orange. We don't have to go crazy with it, but we can get a little more color on there. Same way we did the other colors on the fingers. Let's keep this, oop, a little too much orange. Now see what I did? I had too much on there, so I'm going to wipe some of it off and just use what's there already to blend it together. And then you get light little wisps on that will actually push that. See, so I fixed the mistake I made. Little bit of paint, you wipe it off, and let the brush do the rest of the work. All right, we'll give a little shadow on each side of these fingers in orange. Just a hint of it. Same thing on the arm. Let's put it on the top, and then push it together. All right, and we'll do the same thing on the bottom. Let's put some orange on the bottom of her arm and blend it up. All right, so you got something that looks like that. Oh, let's forgot this arm. All right, let's just keep it down bottom here. We'll leave the pink as it gets towards the top, so then let the brush dry out as you get higher. All right, and we'll just fill the bottom part in. Got a nice little highlight on her shoulder. We'll keep that. Okay. Got the light colors. The orange is starting to build the structure. You can start to see how her face is starting to take shape, right? Okay, the same thing on the underneath on her neck. All right, we've got the highlight on her chest here. We'll darken these areas up, but the orange has actually started to build a little bit more of a structure, as well as the arms and the hand. All right, let's let that dry for a second. Smooth out any areas you want, darken up every areas you might think need to be darker. All right, we'll let that dry for 1 minute, and then we'll come back and we'll add the next color on top of it. All right, so by now that orange should be dry. All right, a little tap of your finger to make sure. Okay, and like I said, we're going to continue on, and I'm going to use this red now. So get some red out. You've got those little trays. It should make it easy to put a little bit in there. Again, we don't need to clean off that brush. All right, I'm just going to make sure there's no excess orange on it. All right, and we have a fair amount of red on Ash, especially because half of her hair. So we're going to use this liberally. So let's go starting up here. All right, I got a little bit too heavy. All right, we want to keep that light, so I wiped a little bit off. Still a little too heavy. There we go. All right, see how that kind of feathered nice when I got a little too heavy? Just wipe it off, it'll feather nice. I'm going to come around the rim of her face, where her hairline, her hair is meeting her face, and we're going to go right around that with the red. And the same way we've done this, I'm going to feather that red into that orange. All right, so you see what you're doing? You're actually making that nice little curve on her head. All right, and we're doing that in these shades of oranges and reds. All right, I'll heavy this up a little bit here. A little bigger of a shadow. Right to the eyebrow. Okay? Let's do the same thing around this side of her face. All right, you'll take that line, run right along that black line in solid red, okay? Because that's going to be a nice shadow from her hair. So we'll use that to our advantage there. And then bring this a little heavy towards the bottom. Right? Let that brush do the work, okay? You're going to want to push that brush into the canvas, and that'll give you that nice little soft edge. All right? Not a lot of paint. Let the brush do the work. Push the side of the brush into the canvas, and that'll allow it to blend for you. All right, so let's start by going over top this eye here. In the white areas, we're going to make that all red. So let's fill that in. Get it nice and smooth, no bumps. Keep the eyelid white. All right, I'm just going to do the top, almost like where she'd have eyeshadow. All right, the eyelid stays white, and we'll complete that like by doing this. All right, eyelid stays. All right, we'll come over here. Right around, almost a brush width down the side of her face. You know, keep the curve of her face. Take the brush right down the side. All right, when we get down towards the sides of her chin, or I'm sorry, her cheek, we're going to start to get a little heavier with it. All right, so we want to take that and we want to fade that in a little more here. All right, give me that heavy section there. And then again, dry your brush off and blend that in. All right, so you've got a little bit fatter right where those cheeks would be, right there. All right, and don't worry if it looks a little heavy. We're going to go back and we're going to make that a little lighter with the other colors. But I want to show that she's got some nice cheekbones. We want to make those pronounced. And I'll bring this shadow in red down a little bit down here as well. Okay. We'll go underneath the lip on top of the orange. And give that little shadow, make that darker under her lip there. All right, so you got the shadow under the black line. And while we're there, let's go color these lips in red. All right, we're going to go solid red on the top and bottom lip. Take it right to the black line. All right, paint them in solid red. All right, got a little bit of red on the brush. All right, not too much. I'm going to dab this to get some off, and what I want to do is I'm going to run this red right down that side of her nose. A nice thin line of it, not heavy. All right, I don't want to have a lot of color on the side of that nose. All right, and I'll continue on that shadow underneath. All right, nice thin line. Make sure it's straight. We don't want her nose to be crooked. All right, so make sure that's a nice straight line down her face. All right, we can always go fix a little bit here and there. We just don't want to get too carried away with it. All right, what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of red on the top of that nostril to identify it. Little hook, little tiny hook of red on there. All right, let's start coloring that hair. So obviously you Ash Costello fans know that Ash has two-tone hair, which is incredibly cool. I wish I could do it, but I can't. My hair coloring days are long past, so I will live vicarious through Ash Costello. This whole side of her hair we're going to make red. All right, I'm going to leave a line of white here in the center. All right, we'll paint that again when we go back to our flesh color, because that's going to be lighter. But this entire section here, we're going to go red. And again, I'm putting the color on uniform, it's smooth, but I'm not putting a lot, all right? Don't go wasting all of your paint yet. All right, so this'll, if you use let the brush do the work. If you use it sparingly, it'll stretch itself out nicely. All right, and don't worry about being streaky. We can always go back and fix that. Let's just get a base coat of red all the way down that hair. She's got this little break in her hair down bottom that I put, so we'll just leave that section white there, that little upside down V. That's actually her shirt peeking through under there, so we'll leave that. All right, smooth it out. All right, so that whole section of hair right there, we'll leave that red, all right? And while that's drying, let's go over to this side and we'll start on the hand. This whole under section here, which would be the under part of her thumb, up to that black line, we're gonna make that red and bring it right up to that color that you had on there before, that yellow and that pink. All right, so give yourself a little random edge to that. All right, fill it all in. All right, she's got that one cool little red fingernail. Let's make him red. All right, and then we're gonna give a one red little line shadow underneath that one finger. Okay? We'll move on and we'll do the same thing to the arm. Up against the black line, on top that orange, and we're just gonna make it a little heavier in color. I'll do the same thing on the bottom, the reverse, to the black line, and smear it up into that orange. All right, we'll go under the chin, we'll do the same thing. Continuing to build that little rainbow of color around it. Smear that red on top of the orange. All right, you don't cover all of your orange, just the edges of it. All right, and you can hear me grinding that color into that canvas. That's what you're going to want to do. That'll give you that feathered look. Okay, so you've got almost a little burst. It gets lighter in the middle and it gets darker as it goes to the outside. All right, let's put some red on top of that orange on her arm as well, just the bottom part. I want to keep that highlight on her shoulder, so we'll just go red along the bottom here. Okay. Now while that's drying, all right, I'm going to come over here. So she's got, obviously, half her head is red, the other half is black. Okay, and I started with a white indication there. So what I want to do is I want to take the red and I want to continue this over here like this. So I'm going to sketch where her hair would be. All right, and this side of it, what I'm going to do is take the side of that brush and I'm going to start by smearing some red into that black. All right, and this is nothing but just pure artistic license we're going to take. All right, it'll actually define the edge of her hair, but I want to pretty up that black a bit. So by smearing some red into it, I can achieve both purposes. I show the side where her hair would be, the outline of her hair, and then I give some nice color into that black. So it's the same way you've been smearing that other color together. Throw some on there, and I'm not coming up to the very edge. All right, just grinding that color into that canvas. All right, so I've followed that curve. Okay, so you can still see where her hairline would be. All right, a little bit of red over there. I think I want to take it a little higher, so let's go a little higher with that. Okay, something like that. All right, let's see if any of that's dry. All right, so if yours is like mine, it's a little streaky. So now's the time we'll go back and we'll put a little more red on there to get rid of some of those streaks. So if your paint is still wet, all right, you're not going to get rid of streaks. You're just going to create more. So in order to do this, you got to let the red dry. So if your red was on heavier than mine, you're going to have to wait a few minutes to let that red dry in order to make it solid. All right, so you're starting to see how we're building it, okay? The red around her cheeks, around the rim of her face, all right, gives us a little bit of shadow. Okay, I'm not real worried about this yet. I'm going to blend that a little softer, but we can at least identify where that cheekbone is. All right, we've got the red on the shadows on her arm, so we're using red as a shadow color. Okay, so that's what we've done basically with that. Let that red set, okay, and then we can go layer color on top of it, but at least let it set for the time being. All right, and we'll add another color in a second. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to go, I guess what we'll do, let's rinse the brush off. Okay, so put the brush in your water. All right, and clean it off. What I like to do is just basically wet it pretty good and then kind of squeegee it in the inside the little paper towel or napkin. And again, if you rub that on your hand, as long as no color's coming off, it still might have a little bit of a tint to the brushes, but you're fine. You're not going to get anything on you. All right, and what we'll do now is let's go to purple. All right, I'm going to go slightly darker instead of the blue yet. So I want to use the purple. All right, and we'll continue building the shadows with the purple. Now the purple is going to be a little translucent, which means you're going to see through it a bit. So we might have to layer that up. All right, but what I want to do is I want to start getting a little bit darker. Okay, so underneath this line, that black line for her hair, all right, I'm going to paint purple on top of that. All right, because that's a pretty good shadow. All right, so put a little bit of purple on that. All right, what I'll do too is I'm going to come right down the side of her face. All right, now, not a lot of purple, so you're definitely going to want to be drying your brush off. All right, so you can see it's very, very faint. All right, and that'll be right up against that line for her hair. And I'll just put a hint of it around the curve of her chin, or her cheek rather, around that side. All right, I'm going to come up and do the same thing on this side. Inside that black, right on that edge, all right, I want to put a hint of purple. All right, and this is where we'll have a little bit of fun with it. Let's make her eyeshadow along the bottom, all right up to that eyelid. I'm going to feather a little bit of purple there. All right, again, not a lot. In this corner of the eye, I want to bring that purple, and I want to feather that inward. So we're creating that really, really nice, sexy color on top of her eye there, all right? Keep that little bit light, all right? You can start to see how nice that eyeshadow is starting to look. All right, we'll bring it over here as well. In that corner there, all right? Let's put a little bit underneath. So what you're doing is you're basically feathering that purple on top of the black. So it's almost like you're, instead of using black to smear it, you're using the purple to smear it. All right, it's a prettier color than just putting black. All right, so you built that nice little halo look on top around her eye. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing under her nose. So on top of the black line, just along the bottom, I'm going to put some of this purple. All right, and we're starting to get a little tighter here. We've got 4 other brushes. If you want to use a skinnier brush to do this, because it's a little more of a detail, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. I'm okay with the thicker brush, so I'll keep with that. All right, and I'm going to make this V under her nose. All right, I'm going to bring it right. You see it's got about 1/4 of an inch above her lip, but it comes to a point right there in the center where that little divot in her lips are. And I'm going to color this in purple. All right, so make that little shape under her nose. We made a nice, cool little shadow under her nose there. All right, and then what I'm going to do is on top of it, I'm going to fatten that line up. Okay, so it's almost like you got the little wing thing going on there. All right, and make sure that's solid. You see mine's got a little bit of a color to it. All right, give her that nice shadow under her nose. All right, let's come up here for this eye. All All right, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put purple on this. Right in the middle here. Same way we did that one. Leave the edge there. All right, right on top of that black, I'm going to feather that a little bit. All right, I'll bring that up around the corner. All right, leave that nice little white spot. And I'll do the same thing. I'll push that purple around that, right around the black. Edge of the brush, I'm going to bring this line a little in more. All right, you see how dry this is? All right, and it's almost going to give me that little eyeshadow look. All right, a little bit underneath her eyes. Let's take purple and go over top of this red on her top lip. And again, the purple, like I said, it's kind of translucent. Don't put it on real heavy. All right, but you're going to see that red come through, and that's the purpose of it. All right, we're not using it as a solid color. We're using it as an accent. So I want to be able to see what's underneath it. All right, made a nice shadow on her top lip. Let's keep that there. And then what I'll do is I'll take the brush and I'm going to go right around the black line on her bottom lip. Just heavy up that line with the purple. All right, we put a little bit of shadow on that as well. All right, now we've got some white here underneath. Let's fill all this in with purple. Give it right up to the chin line, all right? Don't get it on her face, just up to the chin line. Wherever we had white left, well, let's fill it in with purple. All right, same way we did the others. Use that side of that brush to blend it together. All right, you're going to want to paint that right up to that jawline. All right, but remember, all right, one of the characteristics that make Ash Costello are the features on her face. So if you start messing with the jawline, it's going to change the whole entire look of her face. So make sure if you get any of that color into the other one, you're going to have to go back and get rid of it, because that'll make, when you stand back, that'll make that whole jawline look funny. All right, and it won't look like her. All right, she's got a pretty good shadow over here, so let's bring this down a little more. All right, we'll paint in between these little fingers. And let that feather in there. Okay, fill that in like that. What we do now is we can carry this purple down, all right, along the line of her hair. All right, because that'll make a shadow for us. Let's bring that down into the white of her shirt as well. All right, nice little fat purple line there. All right, because she's got a shadow where her hair is hitting the shirt, all right, it's going to be a little darker. And we'll hit that section here as well. All right, so I'm going to put a little more purple on the brush. Now what I want to do is I want to define a little more of that hair texture. All right, so let's start with the outside here, And again, you can see how the brush, the paint isn't really covering everything. I'm fine with that. All right, I don't need it to be a solid line. All right, that little broken up line is totally cool with me because it shows that it's obviously it's a hairline. All right, we'll put one here in the middle. Just give yourself a little bit of texture in her hair, not a lot. Some up top, and make sure your lines, all right, you follow how her hair would flow. All right, so these are all these big, long strokes is how you're going to want to do that. All right, that'll give a little bit of texture to that hair. All right, keeping purple as a shadow, let's go down this side. All right, we'll put a little bit of shadow on top of that white where her hair would be hitting that shirt as well. All right, all the way down. All right, I want to get some on the arm as well, so we'll right up against this bottom part here. Do the top and bottom. All right, that gives a little bit of roundness to the arm. And we're going to come underneath that hand and we're going to do it here too, right underneath the black line. All right, feather that in like we've done our others. And bring it right to that arm point here. All right, so you left some red there and colored it in. That gave us that little bit of shadow underneath her palm. All right, let's see where else we want. Okay, let's put some over here. All right, and if you guys are familiar with Ash Costello, she has some pretty badass tattoos. We're not going to try to draw those exactly, but I do want to indicate that there's some here. So all I'm going to do is just put a little bit of a pattern here, using the brush as letting it fall where it will. All right, there's no real need to get literal with all of this. This is just showing she's got ink. All right, and it kind of builds character. We kind of like that. All right, we'll put some up top here as well. All right, she's got that little random square kind of thing going on up top. All right, see an indication of it, all right? If you got real literal, this would look bizarre if you actually tried to paint all of her tattoos in. So I think just by doing something like that indicates that she has them. There's no real need to define them like so literally. Okay. All right, let's let the purple dry. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe that off as good as I can. Make sure there's no purple coming off. All right, let's go to this darker blue. You've got two shades of blue, one light, one dark. So we're going to go to the darker one. All right, it's this color here. Get a little bit of that on the brush. All right, and I'm going to come paint the rest of this eye up here. So let's fill that in. All right, and this part as well. And I want to bring this down right to the corner of her eye. The little eyelid there. Okay. And I want to, for now, let's keep that eyelid white. So bring it to a point. Okay, keep that top of that eyelid white there for the time being. All right, I think it looks kind of cool. Let's bring that light blue underneath. All right, and then what I want to do is I want to actually, where the whites of her eye would be, I'm going to make those blue. All right, I left a little bit here on the bottom. All right, so instead of the whites part of her eyes, we're going to make those blue for the time being. All right, it looks a little weird now, but we'll fix that. All right, so with our blue, all right, we don't have a lot of it, but there's some of it. I want to start to make those little streaks to show this side of her head, her hair. All right, so I've got some lines up top here. All right, that'll show up. It's a little bit more blue by her part. All right, and then let's bring that blue down as far as streaks. Long lines. All right, these aren't short, they're like nice long flows that show hair. All right, all the way down. All right, I like to stop it right about there. This side remains black. And let's continue on down here. Okay, random lines. Kind of like how that looks on her hair. Remember how we did the red on that side? We're going to do blue on this side. Get some blue on that brush, and let's just smear that into that black. All right, I left a little bit of space of black on the bottom. I didn't go all the way to the edge. We're going to bring this up a little bit higher. All right, and again, this is nothing but just pretty color on that hat. It just pretties up the black. You know, if you have a large mass of black, it just tends to look weird. All right, so I like to pretty up the blacks with purples and blues. All right, and in reds in this case, I think it just makes for a nice, pretty composition. Okay, we're going to bring this blue down into her shirt. All right, same way we did the other stuff. We're going to bring it over to here and just smear it. And we're going to keep the darker blue towards this side. So get that little section down here. We'll fill him in. All right, same thing here. Just get it. Go right on top of the black lettering. It looks kind of cool. All right, we're going to add color to that, so no need to go crazy with it. All right. So while we're on blue, let's do this. Let's rinse this off a little bit, because if your brush is like mine, it's starting to get a little dry. All right, I'm not going to clean it thoroughly, but now I'll take that light blue color you have, just a tiny bit of that. All right, dried my brush off. Okay, we've got this little light blue. Let's get some of him. All right, not a lot. And I'm going to start putting a little bit of light blue on top of that dark blue. All right, we'll get a little on that eyelid. All right, I left a little bit of white there. Okay, I kind of like the way it looks like that. A little more blue underneath. And again, this blue is also very translucent like the orange. All right, so we're going to use it as a pretty accent. All right, I'll get a little more into that shirt now. So it's a little bit lighter. Right over top the letters on the shirt, it'll make for a pretty highlight. All right, and then let's do the other side of the shirt. All right, you can hear the brush grinding right into that canvas. That's what I want to hear. All right, she smeared that around. Okay. What else we got here? All right, I think that's it for the blues. All right, clean your brush off while that's drying. All right, let's get the brush really good and clean. So if you got to change your water, if you got to change your paper towel, now's going to be the time to do it. All right, you want all that color off that brush. All right, make sure it's real nice and clean, and we're going to give that 1 second, let that paint dry and set up. And then we'll come back with our last couple colors. All right, so our paint is dry, right? And our brush is clean. So the last color, or pretty color I say, we've got a couple more. I'm gonna do yellow, all right? So I wanna make sure that brush is nice and clean, because if it's not, that yellow is gonna get dirty, and I want it to be nice and bright. So this is our bright yellow, right? We used the cream color earlier, but I've got this bright yellow now. All right, so a couple things, just not a lot of it, but it looks really cool. So we're gonna hit that eyelid, okay? Color in that eyelid there. And then what we'll do is the whites of her eyes make yellow. So paint those in. All right, so that whole eye is yellow, that whole eye is blue. All right, and I'm back. I don't know if you've changed brushes. I haven't yet. I'm still on that heavier brush. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some yellow in this t-shirt. All right, so I'll paint that little collar part in. All right, and then what I'll do is I'll come down here underneath the black line, and I'll smear that right up into the blue. The fun part about that is yellow and blue make green, so we kind of got a free color out of the deal. All right, smear that in. Again, don't be afraid to go on top those letters. It doesn't matter. All right, the yellow you won't really notice it anyway, so it's kind of cool just to fade it right on top. All right, I'm not really concerned about filling in all of this white in yellow. All right, so I'm just gonna do this randomly here. Again, if you wanna fill the rest of that shirt in yellow, feel free. You know, so I'll bring the yellow down to the bottom, but then I'm gonna kind of stop it. All right, I don't mind that stays white in the center on her chest. All right, very little yellow on the brush. I'm gonna creep some of it up into her skin. Again, you see how light this is? It just puts a little bit of that yellow up into her flesh. Okay, not a lot, very, very little. All right. Shirts over the blue. All right, and that's it for yellow, which was kind of cool. All right, so that's a very light color that we used there. So now I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna wipe that off, all right? And what I wanna do now is go back a little bit and fix some stuff up. All right, I'll go back to that flesh color we had, that real light pink that we had in the beginning. And I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna fix a couple of these areas that I wanted to smooth out. Now this is kind of the part where everybody's is gonna be a little bit different, all right? You might not have an area where you want that I'm gonna fix. So I think you just take a little bit of time and go through these colors and fix some areas that you noticed you might not have had paint that you want some color on. All right, somewhere if you want to go back and smooth it out a little bit more, okay, this color on top of the other colors will blend it that kind of nicely for you. So any area that you want to do that, go ahead and actually fix that up now. All right, that'll actually smooth out a lot. All right, one of the other things, I'll use this as a highlight where we made the dark streaks in her hair. I'll use it to make light streaks as well. Again, nice long lines. All right, that shows her hair is nice and shiny. All right, we'll get one closer to her face here. That's kind of cool. I like that. All right, get those in there like that. One other thing is, I think I said it earlier, I'll go on this side. The one thing we're gonna wanna make sure, okay, is that highlight on her nose is straight. All right, mine's a little crooked, so we'll fix that. So again, yours might not be. I want mine to be a little more straight down her face, so I'll go back and I'll indicate that now. All right, same thing on this side. All right, it's a nice straight highlight down the center of her nose there. You're gonna wanna make sure that's there. All right, I'll fix a little bit on her hand. One more highlight in her hair. Now, what I'll do now is I'll go and I use black as our cleanup colors. So black and white are the last things we do. All right, I'll start with the black. All right, and now I'm gonna want to go in and I'm gonna want to darken up areas that I want dark. All right, notably those areas under her neck or her chin. So we'll go hard black in the corners here. All right, that's the heaviest shadow. All right, so bring that down. All right, same thing we did. You're gonna smear it. All right, so smear that black on top of that purple. Do not get it on her cheek. That would look bizarre. All right, but you make that shadow over here real nice and dark. All right, and we'll do it on the other side too. Anywhere where you've got paint on top of the black, you want to clean it up, that's what we're doing now as well. All right, so get a nice dark section under here. And we smear that into that red. Okay? Same thing over here. All right, I left this white up there so you guys could actually see where the top of her hair was, but it's not supposed to be there. So now what I'll do is I'll go back, I'll make it black, let that blend into the rest of her hat. All right, like again, where I went over the edge of her cheek, I want to bring that nice hard cheek line back. So the original black that was on the canvas that I gave you, now what we're doing is we're bringing all of that back. All right, so you can see on the side here where I overshot that on her cheek, I want to bring that line of her face back. All right, so we'll do that. Same thing with the hair. I want to show a nice black line here. All right, the eyebrows, you're going to want to make sure you bring those back as well. So if you got any paint on top of her eyebrows, fill in those lines again. All right, use your fine brushes because you've got a couple of them. All right, but bring back her eyebrows. All right, underneath her nose as well. All right, the nostrils, we're going to want to make sure those are black. All right, those areas there. All right, and what we also want to do is, again, if you want to take your fine brush, I've got the heavy brush, but I use the side of it. I kind of want to make that nice, that where her lips touch, give me a nice fatter line there. All right, corner to corner, okay? And again, take your time. All right, you're in no rush at this point. You're going to go through and you're going to darken those areas up. All right, bring all your blacks back. And again, what you can do is keep black, purple. You know, those areas don't have to be solid black. If you want to go back and add purple to them as well, it makes a really pretty complement to it. So the purples, the blues, the reds on top of the black will really give you some depth. All right, while I'm doing that, I'm going to wipe off some of that black. And again, I'm just going back and touching up some colors. I want to get some of that highlight out of her eye. So I dabbed a little purple in that. All right, a little bit of purple against the blacks in her eyes. Show a shadow. All right, see, I feathered a little bit of purple underneath that eyelid to give herself some depth underneath her eyes. All right, I want to heavy up some of my purples on this side. Again, you might not need it on your side. All right, I'm just going to add a little bit more purple to some of these areas. All right, and feel free, take your time to go back and go over any kind of areas you want to fix. The way I like to paint these things, it's in a cycle. Okay, so we're getting towards the end, but that doesn't mean you can't go back to your lighter colors and start painting a little more or blending. I mean, obviously this is a much bigger painting, but you can see there's a lot of blending going on there. I didn't add that much in here, but I still got the effect. So depending on how much blending you really want to do, now's the time to do it. All right, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'll grab one of my finer brushes here. All right, and I'll go get some white. All right, put a little bit of white on that. And now what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll get some nice pure white highlights, okay? Especially in her eyes. All right, you're gonna wanna get a little bit of shine in those eyes. All right, so 2 little dabs inside there will do it. All right, I like to put a little bit of dots up top here, like where her eyelashes would have a little bit of shadow. All right, it gives those eyes a real deep character look, which is kind of cool. All right, and on her bottom lip, right underneath that black line you made. All right, let's get some nice white right up against that. All right, we'll show that she's got that nice full bottom lip. We're gonna wanna bring that out as well. All right, and then what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of white and I'll come right up on that top lip, right up there where that little V is, and give her a highlight up top there as well. All right, that'll show how she's got those great full lips, and that'll actually emphasize those as well. All right, let's bring a little white here on that nostril. All right, I'll put a little white on this ring, a little dab. All right, I'm gonna smear a little bit of white on top of this eyebrow up here. All right, gives yourself nice little highlights. Let's do one on this side too. All right, just a hint of color. All right, so you can see it's starting to take shape. I mean, we could sit here and noodle each one to death because everybody's is going to be a little bit different, you know. So purple underneath the eyes makes for a nice little line. You might want to add some of that. But again, I think at this point in time, it's to each his own. You know what I'm saying? So now's the time to take it and take it as far as you want it. You guys already have a full-on shot of the finish that I've done, the big one. So there's the roadmap for you. We've already started it and we've got pretty good progress along the way, but feel free to take it, as far as you want. That'll pretty much conclude our lesson on this. We have our social media channels. I think I said earlier, we're on Instagram and Facebook, Rockstar Paint Class. We also have a Facebook group where I really encourage everybody to post their final pictures. Ash will be looking at them, and I think we're going to have a little surprise for a couple lucky winners. So please make sure you share those with us. Tag Ash Costello, tag New Year's Day, tag us, and you never know, you might win something special. I hope you guys have a good time and take care until next time. Thanks.